Hey, it's Brock here from Rock Hill Farms, and today I want to talk about extra safety equipment and safety protocol built into modern equipment and whether or not I think it's a good idea, and I want to hear from you guys whether or not you like to have your machines having all this extra stuff built into them. One example is the Bobcat tractor that was here recently, which is actually, basically a Coyote tractor. Had a series of protocols that if you didn't follow those protocols properly, it would set off this buzzer and it would disable the tractor or shut it off. And it drove me crazy. The New Holland, I believe, also had a buzzer. The Boomer 55, which is made by LS, it had a buzzer. And I just hated it because if you put it in gear before you release the parking brake, it starts this high-pitched scream at you. Well, I would have figured it out when it wouldn't go. Whether or not it's good to have these safety shutoffs, I definitely am not a fan of those high-pitched buzzers. But one place this becomes an interesting conversation is with this TYM tractor. I can put that tractor in gear and sit there, take my foot off the pedals, foot off the brake, no emergency brake, tractor in gear, and sit there all day. The tractor's not going to move. Hydrostats don't move unless you push the pedal. So this tractor, you can get out of the seat, get off the tractor with it in gear, and it's not going to shut it off. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Now, I think if you set your emergency brake and get out, it's not going anywhere, but it's still probably a bad habit that you shouldn't do. But the question is, do you want your tractor doing your thinking for you? Or would you rather be responsible for your own safety? Another example of it is on my truck, you cannot drive the truck with the door open. Well, driving the truck with the door open is a bad idea. But how many of you have ever been up close to something and you wanted to open it up, open the door, and look at your back tire or your front tire and see how much room you had? If you could just barely clear something or you were using it to steer. None of us are out here driving down the freeway with the door open. But what the manufacturer of the truck doesn't want is for you to forget that you have it in reverse and get out of the truck and have it run you over. And I understand they're trying to look after you, but I want to be able to look at my back tire whenever I'm backing up to something. So, what's your preference? What do you think about all this safety stuff? My little John Deere tractor still has a working seat safety switch, but I know a lot of people disable that because when you're sitting in the seat and you can't see your bucket or your pallet forks and you try to lift up so you can see over the hood to see them, shuts the tractor off. It's really annoying. A lot of people disable that. Well, it's there for your safety. So who should be in charge of your safety, John Deere or you? Really comes into play with a lot of things if you think about it. While we're still on tractors, another one's lift capacity, and I've talked about this a lot. Within a class range of tractor, John Deere and Kubota generally offer less lift capacity than the competition. And why is that? The answer is not because they can't figure out how to make it lift more. And the answer is not that making it lift more is super expensive. They could make it lift more if they wanted to, but they've chosen not to. And there are a few possible reasons. Number one, they want you to spend more money on a bigger machine. Number two, they think it's not safe for you to lift more with the small machine. You might tip it over and kill yourself. Number three, they think it's not good long term for the machine to be able to lift more. You're going to wear out your front axle. And my thought on it has been, I would rather they give me the capacity and let me be responsible for my own safety. But I can see both sides to a lot of these arguments. It's a good idea to wear chaps while you're running a chainsaw. That being said, out of everyone that I've ever known in my entire life, while living out in the country and being around chainsaws my whole life, I had never seen anyone wearing a pair of chaps until I bought some and wore them myself. No one I've ever known in my entire life has ever worn a pair of chaps. So would you like to buy a chainsaw that will only start if it is plugged into your chaps with a little electric sensor that monitors whether or not you're wearing your chaps? Or do you want to be responsible for your own legs? Do we all still have the freedom to make these decisions? And there's a fine line for everything. You know, a tractor nowadays has to have a rollover protection system or you're not going to sell it. Rollover protection systems are good. But it comes back to some of the comments I get from some of the people who live in Europe, and they say, it's illegal to run a chainsaw without a pair of chaps. Well, in the U.S., the government, we don't feel like the government has a right to tell us what we can do on our own property as long as we're only endangering ourselves. So I don't have a strong opinion on some of these. Some of them are just things I like to think about, but I'd like to hear your opinion. Do you think these machines should have all these safety features? Do you think they should have more than they do, less than they do? Now I have another conversation I want to have a little bit. I'll try to keep this brief because it may not apply to most of you. But I'd like some feedback from anyone out there who's self-employed or for some reason or another doesn't have access to an employer insurance program. I think about this a lot, and I'm going to start off talking in general about insurance. Insurance companies make money. Now, this is a simple in and out transaction that you pay the insurance company a premium, they cover losses or cost that are covered by these premiums. And in general, insurance companies make money. So if insurance companies make money, then that means that the average customer loses money by having insurance. So let's talk, for instance, about car insurance. In a perfect world, it would make sense for you and me to not have car insurance. Sounds kind of crazy, right? But dollar cost averaging, if you took every penny that you ever paid into car insurance and saved it over the course of your life, you'd be able to replace and cover any damages you had due to accidents with the money you saved on premiums. And there is the case of the person who has multiple insurance claims and they come out ahead from their insurance. But what happens is that person starts paying a lot more insurance premiums and they just pay for it on the back end. So you legally do not have to carry liability car insurance if you set up a bond in the value of the required amount of insurance. So I'm legally required to have this 10, 25, 50 liability coverage so that if I hurt someone else, my insurance covers their loss or their medical expenses. If you had the discipline to set aside that money and self-insure, you'd come out ahead. And you can apply that across all types of insurance because insurance companies make money. So I'm looking at it and I'm talking to my insurance agent a couple weeks ago, and she said, you know that if you're in a serious accident and multiple people are hospitalized, you can very quickly be out $1 million in liability. You're responsible for all this damage that's been caused by this accident, and the mandated state minimum insurance hardly even covers you. And that's really something to think about. And for, I think, $30 or $40 a month, I was able to take out $1 million liability umbrella policy that covers someone who comes on my property and gets hurt, any accidents that go beyond my state-mandated liability insurance. But it's a shocker that I bet a lot of people feel like I have insurance, I'm covered, but if you are in a major accident that you're at fault for, the cost of that can be life-changing. What you are now liable for that is above and beyond your insurance. So it's a really interesting question. And I've taken out that umbrella policy. So this applies to all kinds of things. I can take out insurance on my tractor. And if I never have a claim, then I just threw that money away. So there's a lot of decisions that have to be made, and some of us make those decisions on autopilot. And I think it's always a good time to every once in a while just stop and think about it. Am I insured for the things I want to be insured for? Am I insured for things I don't need to be insured for? Do I have the right amount of coverage? Talking to my agent, I realized that I was way underinsured on my outbuildings because the insurance company didn't know that this building existed, and they didn't know that I put concrete floors and heat and air and electric and insulation in my shop. So I've made a lot of changes to my insurance. But what I'm going through right now is about health insurance. And for 7 years now, I've not had health insurance, and I've not been to the doctor more than twice in that 7 years. And it's like playing with fire, walking around without insurance, and especially doing dangerous things all the time. One accident without insurance, an accident's life-changing anyway, but I could have a heart attack, I could have any number of problems. So right now I'm shopping for insurance, and I want feedback from you guys. Because I was really starting to worry about not having insurance and being way overweight and having high blood pressure. My dad had had a heart attack, and your hospital bill for heart surgery can be hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I wasn't covered for that. But because I don't have a job and I don't have health insurance options, for me to get the kind of good insurance that a good job provides might cost me $2,000 a month. So I thought, before I take out insurance, I want to get my health under control so that the pre-insurance physical comes out in my favor, and I'm only overweight instead of obese, and my blood pressure's under control, and my blood sugar's under control, and I get a better rate. But now I'm at the point of taking out a policy, and I'm looking at it and saying, I haven't been to the doctor in all these years. I've lowered my blood pressure. I'm generally unwilling to go to the doctor, and I'm not taking any medication that I don't absolutely have to take. So I'm looking at getting health insurance that covers me with a really high deductible. So if I get the flu, I'm not filing an insurance claim. I'm paying all my own cost for going to the doctor and getting the medication. Even probably if I slice my finger open and I have to get stitches, I'm probably covering all of that. I was just looking at a policy that's $5,000 deductible, and then they cover 100% of everything after that $5,000. I think that policy was going to cost me $140 a month. So I've been playing Russian roulette for the last 7 years, not having insurance. And now I'm looking at paying $140 a month and having, no prescription coverage, no dental coverage, nothing except if I have a heart attack or I cut off my leg or get trapped under a tractor or something crazy like that happens. That would be the policy I'm looking at. So my question for you guys is, does that make sense? Should I take out a policy that only covers extreme use like that? Would it make more sense? Are there alternative options out there where I could get maybe cheaper policy than what I'm looking at? I've thought about some of these like faith-based cost-sharing programs. I've heard people talk about they were in one of those types of programs. I need to get something done about my insurance, and I want to hear what you guys think. Does anyone have any experience or opinions you want to share about how to handle health insurance when you don't have an employer? And I would guess my income is too much to get on any kind of the free government insurance, and none of that even crosses my mind ever. Someone suggested to me that Obamacare exists. That was the last thing I would have ever thought of. So I'd like to hear what you guys think about it. Do you think having 100 insurance policies for tractors and firearms and jewelry and your homeowners and low deductibles and your car and life insurance and health insurance, you think spending all that money is a great idea? Or would we all be better off taking all the money we pay to those insurance policies, sticking it in an untouchable account that is only there for catastrophes? I think we'd all come out ahead if we took all those insurance premiums and just saved them back. And then at the end of your life, when you're like, dang, my house never burned down, my tractor never got stolen, none of this stuff ever happened, but I've got a couple $100,000 of saved insurance premiums that I'm going to spend now that I'm 80 years old. So personally, I don't have the discipline to save that money back, so it's probably not a real conversation. But I thought it might be a fun conversation. So let me know what you think. Should I be able to get off the TYM with it in gear? Should I pay for prescription coverage? Or should I just believe I'm invincible? I don't know. Video is kind of all over the place, but thought it was an interesting conversation. I appreciate you taking time to watch. Put links on the screen to a couple more of our videos, and I'll see you next time.